Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Square Eyes Syndrome podcast. Today, we're having a very special episode of Life on Mars, the UK drama, not the shitty US remake. I'm Ben Gilman, joined as always by Tom Hill, who's nearly dying, apparently.
Yeah, hey.
Well, he's ghost, one of the two, and Troy Salmon, who's apparently alive.
Hey, yeah, what's up?
How are you guys doing?
Yeah, not too bad. If you hear me disappear at any point, my apologies, but I will try and be around for as much of the podcast as I can.
Next week, we might have to do a tribute to Tom. And talk
Apologies.
Nah, it's going to be okay. He'll get through this. He's a strong boy. Thanks. All right, anyway, let's not talk about wrestling. Let's talk about the show proper. Today, we are gathered here to talk about one of the unsung heroes of British television for the last 20 years, Life on Mars. Life on Mars is a British television series which was broadcast on BBC One, which means you know it was very good. The first series transmitted in January 2006, and the second series followed in April 2007. The series was based on, it's a bit of a science fiction police procedural show, which is a kind of a weird mix. Specs is, I would say it is
like a mixture of like quantum leap and like sliders, similar to that kind of thing. For us.
Featuring a police officer from the Greater Manchester Police, played by one of the good masters from Doctor Who, John Sim, who gets hit by a car in the year 2006 on a case, wakes up in 1973. The title is obviously a reference to David Bowie's 1973 single Life on Mars, which has the lyrics, "Take a look at the lawman beating up the wrong guy," which is, well, happens quite a lot because British police were arseholes back in the 70s, according to my dad, who used to be a police officer. So very, very, very normal.
Okay.
And basically, over 2 seasons, and this is a problem that we might have because we're splitting. There's a second spiritual sequel produced from 2008 to 2010, which is Life on Mars. Oh, sorry, Ashes to Ashes.
Ashes to Ashes.
Ashes.
Changes the main character, but has the same cast mainly, and it's moved to London. But
well, Ashes to Ashes kind of ties up a lot of the
talk-
questions that come out of Life on Mars.
it sets up the frame that at first, at the start of the show, you don't know if it's time traveled, if he's in a coma, what's going
He's
on.
mad.
Yeah. Obviously, it's very obvious at the end of the second series, but we'll get to that and we'll tie it all up in a month's time.
Well, you say it's obvious, but it kind of isn't. It kind of isn't. You still don't understand exactly the world that he's in.
On? Yeah.
It isn't until you get to the end of Ashes to Ashes that you definitely know what exactly this world is. But
they do a lot of things with hospital visits, which makes him reflect back to his childhood because he grew up in the Manchester area. A lot of callbacks to his childhood. We meet his mum at one point.
his dad plays an integral part at one point.
There's also a former colleague of his who was his superior, and it tackles racism in that plot point as well. Then there's the football match, which his dad used to take him to, which obviously City United. There's a lot of really, it doesn't flinch away from the police back then. Racism was properly...
Racism, sexism.
Yeah.
Which really collides with Sam. So the name is Sam Tyler, John Sim's character. He's our entry point to this world. because we're going to break it down, just go see where we go. We're not going to get into it too much. But first of all, some background on the show. The program was conceived in 1998 by screenwriters Matthew Graham and Ashley Farrow. They were on a break at the seaside resort of Blackpool, lovely place there, to think up program ideas. They originally titled it Ford Granada after the 1970s car. Originally, the BBC rejected it.
That was because they weren't a fan of They didn't think that a fantasy premise.
Yes, back then they rejected it. It took Doctor Who a couple of years previous to re-inject fantasy and sci-fi back into prime time BBC television. Because ITV tried Primeval, Merlin on BBC One, Being Human that we've talked about previously, and Misfits and Life on Mars has obviously got a bit of a science fiction concept. All this happened because of Doctor Who. It's, that relaunched a couple of years previous, a year before, 2005.
Doctor Who was like the gateway.
People really do like that type of variety. Apparently, it was the initial idea was a more humorous pre-watershed program with Neil Morrissey in it, which would have been interesting. I like Neil Morrissey.
It would have been a very different show.
But it would have been a lot more PG. It would have been a lot more funky, like sweeping under the really bad elements of the 70s, let's be honest. Mm-hmm. And I love Neil Morrissey. We'll get to that in a couple of months. Shh. Get back to him. Got a lot to talk about. Basically, Channel 4, what was it? Gene Hunt. So, Gene Hunt is a difficult character. In many ways, he is Sam's superior, but he's also quite. Because we're seeing it from Sam's point of view, so as a modern audience, we find Gene Hunt and his team. We'll go through them one by one. Quite pure stoic, like a dinosaur, like racism, sexism, kicking heads in. And Sam's reactions to these are quite funny sometimes because they're very, very funny shows. We're going to have to start quoting some of this later.
Yeah, we're going to
have to. Gene Hunt, even back when they swapped the main character out, which we'll talk about next month, Ashes to Ashes, the Gene Hunt is a very flawed character in terms of he's not perfect, but he tries to do the right thing. He just has his own way.
You like him because you know that deep down he's not trying to be a bad person. He's trying to do what he thinks is right, even if he's doing it the wrong way. It's not because he's trying to be a bad human being. In fact, exactly the opposite. He wants to do the best he can for the majority of people, which is why he'll do deals with gangland leaders and stuff like that. Because it means that the majority of Manchester stays safe if he gives a little bit of leeway to bad people.
The villains,
is the way he's kind of looked at it until Sam shows up.
So
because Sam is a lot more black and white.
Yeah, and it's always funny because I will be quoting a lot of this as we go along, like we do with the original podcast, which we're still working on. We'll get there, but that's another day. Gene Hunt is played by Philip Glenister, his family didn't make Cornish pasties. That brand. See? Crap joke. Yeah, moving on.
Oh my gosh.
Jesus
Their Cornish pasties are lovely. He's a very good actor. His brother is also very famous. Is it Robert?
Robert Glenister was in Hustle.
Yeah. Oh, Hustle, one of the great shows of all time.
Yes,
played Ash Morgan in Hustle, I think.
Yes. I mean, what's some of your favourite Gene quotes? Because they're like a married couple.
By armed bastards.
Damn it, you took it from me.
I remember we watched this tonight. Because, but now knowing what happens, what he is, what his character is at the end of Ashes to Ashes, you go back and you kind of see they might have had that plan all along. But there is one caveat. season 3's been announced.
Yeah, but I mean, my thoughts are because apparently season 3 is going to be set in London and in Manchester.
Okay.
So I'm wondering whether what they're going to do is they're going to have that period between the end of Life on Mars and the beginning of Ashes to Ashes, which is obviously 73 to 81.
Yeah, I think that's what they're going to do.
They're probably, my guess would be, without trying to put any spoilers on what happens in Ashes to Ashes and finding out what happens to Sam, my guess would be that it's going to be what happens with John Simm's character and when he left.
Yeah.
And then they decided to move to London.
I'm very sad about Sam Tyler in Ashes to Ashes, but I won't get into it. We'll get
into it when we get to Ashes because that's my biggest disappointment of Ashes to Ashes is that they didn't get him to do a cameo at some point.
I was dying for him to pop out that pub at the end, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoilers. Wow, that's what I was about to say. I'm like, that's spoilers.
I remember one of the first things Gene says is to a bunch of kids. He basically threatens to come around their houses and stomp on all their toys if they touch his car. Yes, because Gene Hunt, yeah, it is. It's one of the early scenes. Just there's basically when I forgot how good this show is. It's a very tight. This is one thing we keep talking about on the normal podcast is we all like in England a punchy, short episode count on our dramas, don't we? Because I think it ties the tighter storytelling in.
Mm-hmm.
Not these 22 season long episodes.
It's more like Netflix drama type stuff now. You know what I mean? That's how it should be. 8 episodes.
8 episodes in each series, an hour long.
Yeah,
exactly.
You can go deep enough, and if you've got a good enough cast, which Life on Mars does, you can tell that whole story in that time period. Because the main cast are all fantastic. I mean, it's a shame that most of those guys haven't actually done anything else. John Simm was obviously huge before Life on Mars came along.
Yeah.
Philip Lester was not that well known, but I mean, he was known, but not huge. And he's gone on to do Mad Men and a couple of other things.
Big School. He was hilarious in that. He was so.
So he's gone on to do a few bits since, but for the most part, the actors who played like the other main characters haven't really done anything else that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
Particularly, I mean, they've all been in things and I've kind of gone, oh, cool, it's that guy. But it's not. Oh, it's a new character. It's Chris from Life on Mars. Awesome. It's like they haven't kind of sold me as new characters. Whereas John Simm, I knew him as a million other different characters, and after Life on Mars, he then became, like you mentioned, the Master in Doctor Who.
He was a good master. A lot of people did not like that master, but I think John
Simm brilliant.
Well, who didn't like that? Who didn't? Who?
Quite a lot of fans. Like I think a lot. I always thought, because we're going to discuss the actors as well one by one, because I feel like we can go more deep on this. John Simm is a fantastic actor. He's one of my favourite actors. The Master's always been, since New Who began, has always had good actors. Even the current one with Chris Chibnall, I really like him. But basically, he brought such a dangerous energy to the Master.
He was the antithesis of David Tennant.
Yeah.
He matched David Tennant's energy just in... Sorry. That's my alarm to tell me to take some medication. I apologise.
It's all right.
Jesus,
so no, I'm on quite heavy antibiotics. So
he's all Ben. Give a break. Let him live.
So my apologies that my alarm went off. But I'd actually taken the antibiotics before we started recording.
You wouldn't sound like you're about to die. So please take it if you need.
No. I have an infection in my leg that I've had before, and it's just not nice. But
his
just
master
makes me feel quite ill. Anyway, moving on. So his master was basically he matched David Tennant for energy, just in evil ways rather than good ways.
And he dances to Scissor Sisters and likes the Teletubbies. That's what I know about his master. Fantastic.
He gave the master really interesting. The master before that had always just been kind of a baddie.
Yeah, just straight villain.
Whereas he gave him a more quirky character, like Doctor Who.
Straight up dangerous as well. Straight up psychopath. It wasn't.
But also, at the same time, you could understand that he and the Doctor were very similar.
Yeah.
They were. He's the dark version of.
Yeah.
If the Doctor let himself go and did all the bad things he could.
Unhinged.
And technically,
it takes an actor like John
he
Cena
tried
to
to
do.
shag his future self, Michelle Gomez. So he's technically tried to shag himself. I mean, what type of awesome master is that? He fancies his female side. He want to have sex with her. You couldn't imagine Capaldi trying to do it with Julie Whittaker, could you? No, exactly. So, I mean, Johnson's been in numerous other things as well. He's like one of our best actors.
Yeah,
he's a great actor.
So I want to come down to Liz White, whose character at first is Annie Cartwright. She's a woman. She's a female PC. As we see her during the series, she grows up to be an inspector. But she has to put up with a lot of sexism and bullshit, like go make the tea love and all that crap, doesn't she, really? But
she's a plonk, yeah.
Yeah.
She's a plonk, yeah. And she's what has she done recently, though? I haven't seen her.
No,
she did Hour Girl. She's in an episode of Hour Girl.
Yeah. She's done very little, actually.
Yeah, not much.
Surprisingly.
Okay. Then we got Ray Carlin, who's Dean Andrews. He's
excellent actor.
Just best moustache you've ever seen.
Don't like the character though. Genuinely don't like him.
Him and Sam never get on.
Well, they have their moments, but
they come to blows quite regularly during the series.
You know, the problem is
they just
go on.
Eventually didn't go on.
The problem with the Ray character is that there seems very little to be redeemable about him, whereas Chris's character, Chris he's gullible. He follows what other people tell him to do. So if people are being sexist and all that kind of stuff, he's going to be part of the crowd, but he's not a bad person.
Yeah.
Gene, he's a sexist, but he's stuck in his ways, but he's witty and he's a good person. Whereas Ray is the one who, I mean, it's a difficult character to play because I think that they use him to show all the worst parts of what was just normal in that.
He's like Gene Hunt without the filter.
He's Gene Hunt without the likability.
Yeah.
He's at the benchmark of everything that happens in that era. That's basically what
that's British people like to say. I right cunt. I just wanted to point out something, actually. The creators of the show, Marshall Lanchester, made one of the most boring Doctor Who episodes in season 6, the one with the clones, the gangers. He was unfortunately one. You know that one?
Mm-hmm.
The one where they're in that really shit cloning thing and it's really crap for a two-parter. Yeah. For some reason...
You can tell that Ben is leading this conversation.
You know exactly where he's going. You know exactly where he's going.
All these casts have been in Doctor Who, okay? Most of these guys have been in Doctor Who. We got Alexi's as well. Shut up.
Tom, shall we just do a Doctor Who podcast, Tom? Shall we just turn into that?
Yeah, why not?
So basically, the writers of this show, I have not really enjoyed any of their other stuff outside of it. They haven't transported it to other shows.
Some writers just don't.
Yeah.
They
like a certain show, isn't it? Yeah.
Did they have Angelic Lawyers on ITV?
Angel Law.
What was that like? Because I never.
I like that show. That was a great show. To be fair, they cancelled it way too early.
I don't remember it.
It's a great show. It's like these two angels. There's a black guy and a white guy. Lawyers, angel lawyers.
And it's Nelson, the bartender, that gives Sam advice a lot. Obviously, we won't talk about his main role. We find that out later in Ashes to Ashes. But he's a good. His name is Tony Marshall.
But from like the very beginning of Life on Mars,
you're
aware. No, but you're also aware that he is not all that he seems to be.
He knows things.
Well, no, because in the very first episode, I think it's the first episode, Sam walks into the bar and he switches from that Jamaican accent to a Southeast London accent and then says to him, "Don't let anyone know they seem to prefer the other Nelson," and goes back to being the man, bruv, and all that.
Yeah, come on, bruv.
So you know from like the very beginning of the show, you know that this guy is very aware of the way he's perceived and what he's doing, and he sees a lot of things.
Yeah.
because he's intentionally playing a role from moment one. So there is a little bit of a clue to the fact there's more to him than meets the eye.
Yeah.
Mm.
And it's played very well.
What I do love about this is they go back to the 70s. Like, they're really good, because you've always got the ongoing, during the episodes, you've always got little flashbacks to his coma state. So you hear his mum, his girlfriend,
His doctors.
and it's some great stuff with 70s nostalgia. They play with it, like the Test Card Girl and footage of 70s shows, and it's brilliant. And the soundtrack, well,
that's one of the great advantages of putting a show in the 70s. You've got an awesome
soundtrack. It's killer.
Absolutely. The 70s is most probably, next to the 80s, one of the greatest periods of music ever.
80s is my favourite, but 70s has got some bangers.
We'll come back to this on Ashes to Ashes, because they nailed the soundtrack.
Well, one of the advantages of filming it in Manchester is that Manchester still has a lot of the old streets from the 70s that haven't changed that much. Because originally, I'm sure you know this, that the show was originally set in London. Then they moved it to Leeds. Then they moved it to Manchester.
Yeah.
Because they were trying to expand kind of like to more rural areas. It's the same reason why Being Human went to Wales, for example. But so they had the advantage of there was a lot. They could do a lot of on the street recording, because there's lots of streets that still look like the 70s cobbled streets. Yeah. Whereas if you go to London, everything's been developed. There's very few areas that look like they did in the 70s. Yeah. You could do it a little bit with the 80s, which is why Ashes to Ashes was able to do it. But they had to. The only outside stuff they did was in the Docklands area, where some of it is still the buildings from the 80s. But most of it they were having to do in studio shot, rather than you can move around a lot more in Life on Mars, because there's enough places that look like the old places, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Also, the way that they coloured the screen, they made it slightly more yellowish for everything set in the 70s.
Yeah,
a lot more stark, kind of grey, whitish.
Yeah, greyed out a bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of washed.
For when he's in 2006.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut across you, Ben.
No, it's fine. Because there's a lot to unload here, because this show is...
Yeah, there is tons to unpack.
It's a weird one, because you feel like you understood what happened when Ashes to Ashes came back, and I remember, but what new shit are we going to learn? And by, it's a weird situation, because it feels like a 5-season storyline, really. I've never seen a show do this since, where they come back with a rebranded title, and it's like the same story.
It's a continuation,
Yeah, it's very unique. And with a third season going in between the both of them, you would have to then go back to Life on Mars to finish the storyline. I don't think it needs a third season. I don't
have a problem. If they've got John Sim and the others back,
if they bring them back, it's fine
to do it. Then I've got no problem with them doing it.
I just hope they don't decide to do a new character.
Oh, what, like in between?
Yeah,
I don't think they would, because the way that it's written in Ashes to Ashes is that Sam was around until just before Ashes to Ashes started. So the confrontations and problems that you see in Life on Mars will have continued up until he vanished in 1980 or whatever the hell it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine they'd bring in another character, because you still got that conflict. Even though by the time Life on Mars finishes, he's more accepting of the world he's gone into. He's still gonna have his 2006 attitudes to things.
Yeah, he's more comfortable in season 2. He's a lot more comfortable. It's noticeable. Sam's a lot more comfortable in season 2 at the start. Yeah.
Well, in season 1, his entire thing is trying to work out why he's there. So in the first episode, it's because he thinks it's connected to the case that he was investigating when he had the car accident.
Yeah.
Basically, he solves that case 33 years before it happens, basically.
And he thinks that will take him home. And
he's thinking
same thing with episode 1 of Ashes to Ashes. The character there thinks, that's it, I could go home now. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah. But then the entire first series is, number one, him coming to terms with the fact he's there, but also trying to work out, he thinks that there's something that he has to do that will happen that will get him
back,
home, which is where the storyline involving his father in the final episode comes in. Yeah. Which is a really good, because obviously the storyline for Sam's character is that his dad left when he was like 5 years old, and his dad was a traveling salesman and all these kind of things.
Yeah.
And then you find out from this series, actually, his dad was trying to become like the Manchester kingpin of crime. But it's a weird thing.
You find out that his mum harassed by a mob boss, and he finds him. Sam. Some of these are quite personal because Sam finds the mob boss that terrorized his mum when he was younger, and takes it a personal route. It's
he's helping his mum, but I never got the feeling that he was doing it just because of that.
Yeah,
I got the feeling that he was doing it because he thought it was abhorrent that a DCI in Gene was doing deals with a mob boss because the mob boss made sure that things ran smoothly. So I always got the feeling that the side benefit was that it helped his mum.
Yeah.
But I never felt like that was his motivation for it.
Mm.
Also, you got the thing of him not wanting to introduce himself as Sam Tyler to his mum.
Yeah, messing up the timeline and all that stuff.
He says mum, doesn't he? And she's like, what? He's gone, oh, yeah.
He's like, oh, that.
Yeah. Well, doesn't he call himself DC Bolam after Mark Bolam or something like that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. Oh, yeah.
Quite funny. Troy, what do you think of Life on Mars? Because so far, you're more quiet than a church over in that corner.
I'm just like teeing up what you guys are saying, but I was saying before, I was saying, to be honest, it was a great show because literally one of the first of its kind to kind of invent this, well, over here, I should say. Like, because you had Red Dwarf and stuff like coming a bit late. What was the kind of time between Red Dwarf and Life on Mars? Because Life on Mars was kind of 2006, but Red Dwarf was kind of before, obviously. Kind of kick it off.
Yeah.
But Life on Mars kind of took it on its head and kind of said, okay, time travel, kind of original stuff in the BBC era. But
it does keep harking back to the Future. It keeps making pop jokes at it, and it does do a lot more in Ashes to Ashes because it's the 80s. It's a bit more accurate there.
Because it's the 80s, because that's when literally Back to the Future was like popping off.
It does have a few Doctor Who nods though, which I like. Please, sorry, continue.
No. So I was saying before. So the character of Sam Tyler, literally, because since the guy who created the Master, he's such a good actor. To be fair, he's just like he's such a presence in every show that he's in. So when you're watching the show, you just magnetized to him. You just want to watch him, everything that he's doing, and he just carries the show on his back. You know what I mean? So I feel that it's a good show just because of him. Because the other characters kind of, you follow him around, but I don't really gravitate to anybody else in the show. To be fair, they kind of just archetypes. If you know what I'm saying, of the times that they're in. So then it's just, I just don't know. It's a decent show, to be fair. I love the show.
You haven't talked about the Marshall Lancaster character, Chris. He's the heart. You can see that he wants to do his best, but he feels a bit weirded out by how everyone else is kind of quite scary. He's in an office for a scary bastard. So him and Sam have like a teacher-mentor relationship style. Chris almost like a modern policeman, similar to Sam's. Right? Sam's like a big brother to him. I really like Chris. Oh, yeah. You know, we won't get into his hilarious 80s fashion. Yeah.
Let's leave that for another discussion.
Yeah, but what I like about it is he's a really good guy. And that's why him and Sam do a really good, have a nice, very nice relationship. He wants to believe Sam.
At least he wants to believe. I mean, yeah.
Because I remember the first time it happens when he wakes up in 1973. And it's just like little subtle things. It's just beautiful. It does feel like he's gone back to the 70s because, like you said, Tom, Manchester still feels like it's kept its history. You know what I mean? You can't say about London because, for example, London's modernised itself so much, where Manchester still has those big cobbled streets and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I love it. I just. But do you think Gene Hunt ever becomes punchable? Like, proper, you cross the line? Like,
he can be annoying, but I don't
think he crosses. The thing is, with Gene Hunt, I don't think he crosses that line. He rides the line. He rides the line of just like you just hate. He's just annoying. He's just there. It's like, damn it, get lost, go away, get off the screen. You know what I mean? It's one of them guys, one of them characters. He's annoying.
When he does cross the line, it tends to be quite funny.
Yeah.
So it's quite difficult to kind of dislike him, even though you know what he's saying is politically utterly wrong.
Yeah.
It's done so well.
yeah.
I mean, one of my favourite, I can't remember the entire quote, but when Sam says to him in series 2 about being in love with a Pakistani woman, and he says, "Oh, I loved her," and he turns around and goes, "You mincing Wendy, Manchester United supporting puff," or whatever the hell it is. It's just the best stream of invective ever.
Oh God! As a Man United supporter myself, I was like, "You son of a gun."
Yeah, but it's the fact that he puts the Man United one in there. That's what stops it from being offensive. If you get my meaning.
Yeah.
Because you laugh at that. The fact that he considers that to be as bad as all the other things he's listed.
Oh my God. He's gone back.
Hold on. I'm finding the quote. Hold on. Because he gets all the best lines. I think they totally knew what they had. You know, in the character. I think
he knew it more in the second series.
Yeah.
But he's still funny in the first one.
Yeah, but he gets more of those kind of lines.
More of those punchy lines in the second scene.
I'm trying to find it. Hold on. Oh yeah, I found the test card girl quite scary. Oh yeah, there's a great quote from Gene. I wrote this down in my notes. There will never be a woman prime minister as long as I have a hole in my ass.
Yeah.
Also threatening to run over the referee at a football match.
I found it. You great, soft, sissy, girly, Nancy French, Bender, Man United supporting puff.
What team does Gene Hunt support? He's a West Ham fan, isn't he?
He's a Man City fan.
He's a City fan, that's why.
He's a Manchester boy, isn't he?
Yeah.
I was like, how dare you?
How dare you? Oh yeah, I forgot that you're
I'm a Man U. Come on, I'm a Man U fan. Come on,
you're a Mac.
Oh yeah, let's go. No, Gene, he's a great character, to be fair. He's a great character, I'm not gonna lie.
So what would you have improved? Because like the thing is, there's not, I think over 2 seasons it's really tight. Do you think there's any episodes where, because they really do, they're always dealing with police corruption a lot. Numbers. They change the numbers. There's that episode where someone dies in jail, and Gene Hunt's been quite.
Yeah, the one where the guy dies.
He said, "Did an aggressive manner." Yeah.
There's the one where they give the guy cocaine, don't they? While he's in jail cell, and he has a heart attack. Yeah, and then all the other people try to cover it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, that's dealing with quite a strong issue, and still managing to keep it entertaining.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think about the show. It tackles so much stuff within the show, and in different kind of areas, it jumps back and forth through different timelines throughout the shows and that. But
I mean, I quite like the episode where they invade that swingers
thing.
You know, where they basically go undercover, which she describes as being not very manly, listening in on people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where, what was it? Sam introduces him and Annie as Tony and Cherie Blair. But I love one of my favorite things about that is they break into the guy they're surveilling is obviously a secondhand car showroom salesman, and they're putting the bug in the showroom during the night, and the police car go past and they go, "Oh shit, it's the law! Get down!" They all jump down, and then suddenly Jim goes, "We are the law!"
We are the law.
I just love that joke, which is brilliant. See, stuff like that I absolutely love because they're all so stupid in a really likable way.
Oh my gosh.
And then there's also IRA. I remember there's one.
That's my least favourite episode, I think.
But it still is. It does great things with the character interactions because, you know, Ray gets blown up by a car because Sam basically gets it wrong.
Well, no, Sam gets it right. He says it's not the IRA.
You know,
but...
there's that difficult relationship. Okay, but he gets it wrong. Basically, he gets it wrong. They've been childish with each other, and Ray just kind of gets blown up. Well, not blown up. He survives, but he gets hit by the blast of a car bomb because Sam says there's no. Because Sam tries to use his knowledge of the future to try and predict things, doesn't he?
Yeah,
he does that.
Yeah. Having said that, this is my least favorite episode. It does have one of my favorite Gene Hunt lines in it, though, where Sam is saying that Ray obviously has PTSD, and Gene says the man's a bloody hero, and you're accusing him of having the clap. Sorry, things like that I absolutely love.
You all know what my favorite episode is. The Man United episode, bro. My favorite episode 5.
One of the best episodes.
My favorite.
You know what? I was about to say that. I really love that episode.
It is a great episode.
Same one, yeah.
No, it is.
Especially because it's a United fan. Really good episode. No, I'm joking. But it does tell you about how serious it was in the 70s. Like, that type of shit would go down quite regularly.
Yeah.
Still does now, really. We haven't come that far.
Yeah, still football factory type stuff going on, you know what I mean?
But there's that brilliant speech by Sam in that episode talking about how far the police are going to go, where even though it's 16 years before Hillsborough, he's referencing Hillsborough by saying, and how far we're going to go, we're going to start putting up barriers, there's going to be fences, and what happens when something goes wrong. And you're just thinking, this is a man talking about something he knows is going to happen 15 years in the future, trying to explain to somebody who can't see that a bit of a punch-up is just part of the game.
Yeah.
It's like, that was a really beautifully emotional bit for me.
Because I've spoken to my dad. My dad used to be a Spurs fan. My dad is a Spurs fan, but around this time he used to go, because he was a young man, he used to go to Tottenham games. And he's told me so many stories in the 70s where you would, if it was an away game, you would literally get chased out of the city. It's like Hunger Games. You would get killed. Well, not killed, but really your ass kicked.
Yeah, you get smashed.
My dad told me, like, Leeds and stuff. You would, the minute the game ended, you would run in numbers. You would hide your top. That's it. You would get out of there. It wouldn't be funny. It's not like where it's a bit more protected now, where if you stay to the main streets, you're okay.
I heard Millwall the worst for that. Millwall the flipping worst.
Well, to be fair, East London's quite got a rough thing.
Millwall.
There was one time, actually, I can't think of modern football if I've seen anything now. No. I've seen one. I've been to Arsenal Tottenham game. Arsenal Chelsea, Tottenham Chelsea. Obviously, we stuck to the main street, so if there was any ultras or hard men doing it in the side street, so we didn't go down. But it was a bit of a laugh. It's hard to imagine. I have seen one fan went for my dad, and I punched him in the face before the police officer pulled me away.
Damn. Okay, man.
I just kind of rabbit punched him in the side of the face, and like, because he slapped my dad for no reason. It was a Sunderland fan, like Tottenham Sunderland, you know, that long history of feuds. Shoved my dad in the face. I just rabbit punched him in the side of the face. And my dad dragged me away because the police officer went, oi.
Yeah, you got to be careful with that stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was a one-time thing. I just reacted to punch.
No, obviously, if someone's attacking your family, you know what I mean? You got to react. You got to retaliate. You know what I mean?
Like, you get surprised, but you'd be surprised because you know Sunderland fans are not known for being like that. But modern football, you like to think it's been stamped out, but we've got a long way to go. Because as we record this,
yeah, it's got the mentality still in it. That's why.
In the world, Black Lives Matter is happening for a reason. So there's still a lot of ugly sides to the world. We still feel like cavemen in many respects in our ways of, you know. But
exactly, can't help it. Simple as that.
Talking of Black Lives Matter, there's an episode not in ha 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 ha, but I think it's a really good episode because his commanding officer in modern day Manchester is black. There's a very touching story where Sam meets him in his mind, obviously, because spoilers, it's the afterlife. Let's just get that out of the way. So basically, we find out that Sam's boss is a younger man in the 70s, obviously, and he feels like he has to play up to black man jokes, basically, to entertain the boys.
Yeah.
You know? And I remember the speech at the end, Sam just says, you don't need to resort to low humor, racist humor. You don't have to belittle yourself to fit in. You know, because he does quite racial jokes. I'm not going to say them. Like, if you, like, you know, voodoo style, follow me, lads. If it's in the dark, I'll light my ass up or something. I can't remember what it is. Just follow me, lads.
I'll roll my eyes back and you can follow me to the exit.
Yeah, follow me to the...
Basically an African voodoo joke or something. I thought so.
Joke. And the white eyes, you know what I'm saying? Because you can't see in the dark room like garbage.
It does feel awkward. I'm a white guy, and I've seen that scene quite a few times because I've rewatched the show about 3-4 times over the years, and it just makes me every time uncomfortable because he's not being himself. And there's moments like that help you ground Sam, because I don't think you ever stop being in Sam's corner, and it does deal with racism. I mean, there's one bit where there's an Indian. Another one of the standout episodes is a dead Pakistani, and Ray says the P word. I'm not going to say it. And Sam tells him right off for it as well. Proper, you know, he uses the P word for a Pakistani. I'm not going to say it. Racial slang term. And what I like about Sam is he's always correcting them. So they feel like he's a good Boy Scout. When you first watched this, guys, did you ever what did you think was happening? Did you watch this when it broadcasted, or did you watch the show later?
I'll watch it later.
I watched it as it came out.
Okay, so Troy, did you know what happened before you watched it?
Nope, I just went straight into it.
Okay, so what did you think of the twist? Okay, actually, both of you. As you were watching it, what did you figure? Did you keep changing your mind about what was going on? Because they make it very ambiguous. They do a good job. It could go either way.
Yeah, I always thought that he was like in a coma or in hospital back in 2006, and this was his mind's way of coping with it, sort of thing.
Yeah, to be honest, I'd kind of second that because I used to watch a lot of sci-fi shows. All this stuff just happened all the time, so I was like, okay, it's in his head. You know what I'm saying? Or Matthew thought about it. I say, yeah, it's in his mind. You know what I'm saying? None of it was real, to be honest to me. So I was like,
There is. But were you happy with the finale? Because some people hated it.
No, I like the finale.
I think it's fucking beautiful. Because he's not obviously clearly more happy in the 70s than he was in modern day.
yeah, it was alright. It was okay.
I love it. Because that song just reaches its crescendo as he dives to the top. It's beautiful. That last episode's not that great though. It's an okay episode to end on. It's not, the plot of the week isn't as strong, but it's about tying it all together, isn't it?
Yeah, it's more focused on giving you some kind of answer to what the whole thing is, rather than a really strong episode.
It's a bit weird as well because when you're back in the present day with, I'm about to say John Sim. I meant Sam. It feels a bit weird because they deliberately shoot it in a way where you're kind of, it's weird now, it's over, and the audience as well feels this sense of unease because, like, you know, we spent all this time, 16 hours previously in the 70s with Sam, and all of a sudden we're back in modern day. It's like a total whiplash effect, I think.
Yeah, it's almost like a dreamscape. You know what I mean? It's like, it feels surreal because you're like, oh, okay, he's back now. It's like, what's next? That's what they're kind of doing. Like almost like a cliffhanger type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, Annie has a great bit where she partially persuades Sam that he must be 1973 because she's arguing that his mind would be unable to get the amount of detail and tangibility in the world correct. You know, because your mind would to go into such detail on it.
Yeah. Might go into shock.
Because it keeps overlapping the past and present. Because he keeps hallucinating. And you never know until the finale, really, where he stands.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah. You never kind of know. It's kind of like in your back of your mind. Is this really happening? Is it not? And you're like, is he okay? Never really know if he's ever okay. He's kind of just like, yeah, okay, yeah. Kind of just away in the clouds half the time. You know what I mean? He's there, but he's not present. You know, half the time. You know what I mean?
I have a question. The test death girl, the test guide girl, turns up at the end. Creepy little child that she is. They drive off. I want you to tell me what you think this is. I think when she turns off the telly, turns off the viewer, that's like Sam is definitely dead. He's flatlined, whatever. That's the bit where his physical body is dead. That is the end point. What do you think?
Wait, Tom, where's Tom at? Tom's still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay,
Hadn't really thought about it. I guess, yeah, that could be. Because obviously when he gets back in the car and the radio has them trying to revive him after he's jumped off the top of a building. Spoiler alert.
Cool.
So, yeah, I suppose that could be the moment when she turns off. I'd never thought of it that way. I just thought it was quite a cool way to end it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like when the TV ended at the end of every night, you had that little girl appeared for a while, and then the TV went. So yeah, but no, that probably is exactly what they were going for. I don't know, but it's a nice idea. I like it.
Yeah, it's an artsy way of closing the episode, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't like the way she stares into my eyes.
Into your soul.
That girl is creepy.
She's like the Shining girls in the
Wow, the Shining. Wow. Oh,
you know what I mean? The ones in the cupboard.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Creepy, emotionless robot. Because she's been asked to play it like that. It's just creepy. So basically, but have you noticed there are some inaccuracies visible in the show, like modern street furniture, cable television cabinets, satellite television dishes, CCTVs, LCD digital watches, double glazed PC
Yeah,
previews.
it's intentional though, isn't it? How they do it.
Some of it's intentional, yeah.
Yeah, Easter eggs.
It's to make you wonder if Sam is hallucinating or not. It's little things like that I caught on this viewing for this podcast, where I really appreciate the extra attention to detail.
Well, the two things that I noticed were his watch.
Yeah, that's the obvious one.
Which is not younger than 1973. There's a Casio watch from like either the late 70s or early 80s with a digital interface which didn't exist in 73, which is there to kind of make you wonder, but nobody notices that. Nobody ever comments on the fact that his watch is impossible. The other one that I didn't realise until I rewatched it, I don't know, a few weeks ago, was that he's always wearing a St. Christopher. You know that little pendant he's always got around his neck?
Okay.
Which is the patron saint of travellers.
Ah, yeah.
And I was thinking, oh, that's a quite little nod to sort of time travel.
Patron saint of travel. Okay.
That he's being protected by the patron saint of travellers the whole time he's in 1973. And it was only when there was a close up, because I bought my nephews St. Christopher's for their christenings, so I recognised the symbol.
Okay.
But unless you actually knew what it was, you'd just think it was a pendant around his neck. It's only on rewatching I realised.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, there are little nods in there that he might be a time traveller, and he might be this, and he might be that.
Because
it's just a good show.
Yeah.
It's a bloody good show, isn't it? It's like, is there anything that you would improve? Like, because obviously Ashes to Ashes, is there anything, without spoiling Ashes to Ashes, is there anything that you think it improved on in Ashes to Ashes or got worse in Ashes to Ashes? Because it ramps it up a lot more, the overall thing in Ashes to Ashes as it goes on. It's a lot more plot arc in Ashes to Ashes. It's a lot looser here.
Yeah.
Mars.
So
they make a big deal out of what is actually going on once and for all, who Gene Hunt is. Because it's a bit weird, isn't it? Because the same characters turn up again, except for they swap the woman out. So Annie Cartwright is replaced by the other lady, Shazza. So that's the question going into Ashes to Ashes is, okay, so this is clearly not just in Sam's mind. It blows it up a bit over.
It lets you. You still don't know whether it's in Sam's mind, because you could argue that Keeley Hawes' character, having read, that when he goes back to 2006, he's talking about, my name's Sam Tyler, I was in a coma, the same spiel that was done before every episode apart from episode 1. Of my name's Sam Tyler, I was involved in a car accident, I woke up in 1973. You've then got him saying that in 2006 into a dictaphone, which he then sends to the criminal police psychologist in London, which is the character who then appears in Ashes to Ashes.
So she might be doing
it. So you could go, oh, it proves that this world was not just in Sam's head, or that she, in the same situation, because she's heard about this world that Sam created, has used the exact same thing.
I mean, when we get to her first season, oh God, she was so annoying. But we'll get to that.
Yeah, but the majority of comments I want to make about Ashes to Ashes, I'd rather make in a podcast specifically about Ashes to Ashes.
That's going to be a bit longer because we've got to wrap up everything.
Yeah.
I've got some things to tell you. In 2019, The Guardian, which everyone really respects, The Guardian, I think. It's a newspaper in the UK that everyone knows around the world. Pretty good, isn't it? I like the Daily Mail. It doesn't hate bandwagon as much as other newspapers do. It doesn't just have a pair of tits in it like the Sun and the Daily Mirror. So, they have done the top 100 shows of all British shows of the 21st century. Where would you like to say that Life on Mars sits? On its own, no Ashes to Ashes, just Life on Mars.
Ew.
In the 21st century.
Pardon me, 100. That's the first time I farted on the podcast. Lovely. It's the top 100 shows, so American, whatever you have, could be on here.
But of the 21st century.
Yes.
For me, it's top 10. Comfortably.
Okay.
I think I've watched so many shows. I watch everything.
Yeah,
I
but
mean, I can imagine that things like The Wire and The Sopranos probably beat it.
It's such a solid show. I'm like,
it's a pretty good top 100. I'm just going through it now. But we'll go on this off camera.
top 20,
mic.
top 20.
99. It's number 99.
What? No,
Do you want me to go to it? Do you want me to quickly go through it?
Ahead of it?
Because this is technically part of the show. So behind it, the only show behind it is I'm a Celebrity. Get me out of here.
Me.
Oh my god, are you serious?
I will put some shows up in no particular order. Mighty
If Big
Boots.
Brother beats it, I'm gonna King go.
No, yeah, and you know it's gonna be in front of you. You know it.
I will pick out shows that I've seen. Mighty Boosh, The Trip, Skins, Drag Race, 24, The L Word, Fresh Meat, Gogglebox. Are you taking the piss? Buffy Vampire Slayer, Strictly Come Dancing, Gavin and Stacey, Freaks and Geeks, Shield, Very English Scandal, In-Betweeners, Planet Earth, Lost. Oh, you are taking the piss. Shameless, The Good Place, Inside Number 9, Flight of the Conchords, 6 Feet Under, Sherlock, Orange is the New Black, Sex and the City, Utopia, Parks and Recreation, Black Books, Downtown Abbey, Better Call Saul, Doctor Who, The Bridge, The Crown, South Park, Good Wife, Great British Bake Off. You can fuck off with that. This is England, Big Brother. Fuck you, Goody, you racist bitch. There's my FU of the week. What a useless bitch. How did she get so famous? And if you want to with me, fuck you. The Office, Spaced, The Killing, Handmaid's Tale, Black Mirror, Twin Peaks, Girls, Deadwood, West Wing, Curb Your Enthusiasm, Line of Duty, Atlanta, Peep Show, Fleabag. How is Fleabag that high up? Game of Thrones.
I love it.
Okay. Breaking Bad, Thick of It, Mad Men, The Wire, Sopranos. They're all
right. Some of those shows are very good.
Yeah.
A lot of that is pretty good, actually.
But only one or two of them, for me, are better than Life on Mars.
The Great British Bake Off, really?
Big Brother, Tom, it was there. It was there, Tom.
Can't believe that.
I said about Jay Goody, and I stand by that. I don't think she's a person that should be famous for being a bitch.
No.
So, fuck kids. Fuck you, Jay Goody. Sorry. Anyway, so basically...
the one thing I would agree with, though, that's not said there, is the fact that Ashes to Ashes is not as good as Life on Mars.
No.
Which is implied by the fact it's not in that list. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy Ashes to Ashes. I rewatched it not long ago, and I found myself giggling along and enjoying it and having fun with it. But it's not as good as Life on Mars.
It's a bit flaggy. It feels a bit baggy, and the character of Alex is not as likable. I think the first season, it kind of wastes the first season because she's acting like it's a video game.
I was gonna say this when we did the podcast on Ashes to Ashes, but don't get me wrong, Keely Hawes is a good actress, but she is nowhere near as good at the depth and emotion needed for the real difficulties of the character as John Sim. John Sim at the same can play at the same time a guy who's completely conflicted and a guy who's accepting his situation.
Yes.
In the same moment, you can see both looks and both feelings and both things on his face at the same time. Yeah. Keely Hawes, much as I like her, and I do, is not as good as John Sim at doing that, and it means that you're less empathetic. It's John Sim. There are some things that his character does where he's a real dickhead to the other people around him, but you forgive it because you understand the conflict that he's in constantly. And you empathise with the character. You want the best for him. And in fact, you want the best for all of the characters, with maybe the exception of Ray. You want all of them to come out of it okay. But you feel less so towards Keely Hawes' character in Ashes to Ashes, because I just don't think she got quite the same performance range as John Sim.
Yeah.
And also, the problem for it probably would be a really good show if you'd had it the other way round. But the fact that she's following John Sim as the lead character,
Yeah, she's on the same kind of depth.
Automatically comparing her.
Yeah, she's on the same kind of depth that he does.
Yeah.
But the problem with her character, and we're getting to this next month, is I think the first season is wasted, and Alex doesn't take it seriously. I think they get.
But I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that kind of works in a way.
Yeah. Because you have to kind of start off that way because like the person doesn't believe. You know what I'm saying? You've got to kind of be conflicted. Like John Sim is most of the time is conflicted. You know, he's just like, why the heck am I here? You know what I mean?
But also, you're bringing people in. The first Life on Mars has the advantage that it's setting up the whole world.
Yeah, world building.
And whereas Ashes to Ashes, you already know that she's going to go back in time because you know that it's a story involving Gene Hunt.
Yeah.
Which you didn't have a clue. If somebody had mentioned Gene Hunt to you on week 1 of Life on Mars, you'd have gone, who?
You'd be like, what the heck?
But when Ashes to Ashes came out, you know that she's meeting Gene Hunt, therefore you know she's going back in time.
Yeah.
And so they had to do something different with it. Rather than just being confused, she already knows what this world is because she's read about it from Sam's stories. So her reaction to it is, bollocks, this isn't real. I'm just not going to take it seriously.
Yeah, be a joke.
Okay,
which means it gave them something different to work with in terms of the way that she reacts to situations than the way John Sim did, because you can't have her react in the same way.
Yeah, you can't. It'll get boring.
The thing is, with Ashes to Ashes, they have a lot more fun with it, I think. And that's
they make Gene, Chris, and Ray. All of them are supporting acts to Sam in Life on Mars, whereas they're far more central to it because they're the returning characters.
Yeah.
They're given more. Ray is, you actually come to like Ray by the end of Ashes to Ashes because you see moments where he's a genuinely good human being.
Yeah.
Things like that, where obviously we're going to go into this more, but there's the episode with the black prostitute, where Ray is the one who actually is nice to her and gets her talking. That is not something you could have imagined him doing in Life on Mars.
That's called character progression.
Yeah.
We got a point there, Tom. Yeah, because he wouldn't be doing that. It would just be like, kind of standoffish.
Yeah.
Get involved in the world. Yeah.
But also it's because they're showing you more of what Ray does, whereas in the whole of Life on Mars, there were very few scenes that didn't involve Sam.
Yeah.
Because they were trying to make you think, what is it a world where when he walks out of a room, everybody disappears? They were kind of leaving that question there.
This is true,
which is why he appears in pretty much everything.
Sam Tyler is in every scene. But in Ashes to Ashes, we get scenes without Alex.
Yeah, you get scenes where you see what Ray, Chris, and Gene are doing without the protagonist.
No, in some ways, that's correct.
They become a bigger part of it, yeah.
Because I remember John Sim said he didn't want to do a third season because it was bloody exhausting being there all day filming because he never got a break. There was no scene.
They did try and give him one episode where he had to do less, but it still didn't. It was the episode, when they're going back over a case that happened a year or so before he arrived.
Yeah.
With the two people being kidnapped and the girl who'd been raped and murdered and all of that.
Yeah.
Which is a very good episode, actually. It's really chillingly uncomfortable, but very well done. Especially when you find out in the end that actually it was the school teacher who was the baddie. So they had got it wrong the first time round. Not in the way that everyone thought they had, but they had got it wrong. And it's just that really, I don't know if you remember it, that chilling moment where at the end of the episode, he's walking away with his wife and daughter after they've been saved. And a little girl cycles past and you just see him turn and look. and then Gene and Sam go and grab him, basically. But it's just beautifully done, really cinematically lovely bit of work.
Yeah, that's what I don't know about Life on Mars.
With a tricky
cinematography is
subject.
amazing. Yeah.
Mm.
Cinematography of Life on Mars is amazing. Cinematography is on point.
Yeah, it's amazingly well done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just love the fact that in pretty much every scene where they use a car, Phil Glenister basically just went, "I'm going to run into a set of bins." And every time he drives the car, you'll see him hit a set of bins.
Hit a set of bins, yeah.
Every time, and I absolutely love the fact that he went, but he just decided he was going to do that.
Yeah.
And I really like the fact that he put that in there.
I love the fact also, there's a great bit. It's season 1 or 2. They basically get breakfast, and all you see is he's driving backwards next to a really good track. Can't remember what it is. Bollocks. But he's driving backwards down an alley, and Sam's looking terrified, and all you see is Gene with something in his mouth, a roll or something. He's just like smiling at him, just like eyes winking at him as he goes backwards and swings the car around. Love that.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of Life on Mars sometimes.
It's the brilliant little attention to detail and the funny little things that each character has.
You got your own quirk. Yeah.
That make it so good. I mean, like I say, the only character for me that falls down is Ray, because you know the episode with the IRA thing. The problem with his character is I didn't care when he got blown up. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel anything because I didn't like the character.
Yeah.
So him getting blown up, I was like, "Oh shit, that was bad." Oh well, at least it wasn't Chris. Was essentially my feeling on it. And that's really unfortunate because the actor who plays Ray is fantastic, but the way he was written, I understand that he was kind of the everyman thing. That was the whole point of his character, was he was the opinions of that time without the redeeming wit and sensitivity that Gene does have on occasion. I get where his character was, but it just meant that it was a necessity that meant that I never felt anything for him.
Mm.
When he was in trouble, I really didn't give a toss. Whereas I cared about when Gene, if it looked like Gene was going to be in trouble, I cared.
Mm.
When Annie was getting kicked the shit out of by Sam's dad at the end of season 1, I was worrying for her character. You know what I mean? But Ray got blown up, for God's sake, and I just went, "Nah."
Didn't give a crap.
That's a good...
and I feel bad because the guy who plays Ray did an amazing job. Because he's actually, you see him interviewed, he's a really nice bloke, and he played the most misogynistic twat to perfection.
And he once kissed River Song, Doctor Who's wife. See, the Doctor Who stuff just keeps on coming, isn't it?
Oh,
yeah, well, it does with you, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, but there is one good thing. Chris Chibnall, the current Doctor Who writer, writes one of these episodes.
Oh, yeah?
I really hate Chris Chibnall. Like, Broadchurch was good, but he got lucky one time. Torchwood was bad. His Torchwood was terrible. At least he wrote a good one here, because I don't know which one he wrote, but I can't tell if it's a bad one or not. What do you think of Chibnall?
Give me a second, I'll see if I can find out who
wrote
it.
Yeah, because, like, I don't know. I like his Broadchurch. I think he's done 3 good seasons of Broadchurch.
So what was the name of the guy, sorry?
Chris Chibnall.
He wrote episode 7 of season 1, which is the kid dying of a heart attack in police custody with cocaine. That's a good episode.
Yeah, that's the one.
That is a good episode. So he's not
Ben,
bad.
you got to give him a break, man.
Oh, no, he did a couple more as well. He did he wrote the one, you know, when Dickie Fingers gets sprung from prison.
Oh, that's a good one too.
He wrote that.
Hey, Ben, come on.
Hold on. It doesn't matter, Chris, if you're listening. She's still a cunt for writing The Doctor had loads of nights before in the Time of Child, you asshole.
Interestingly, from my perspective, one of the episodes was written by Guy Jenkin.
Yeah.
He wrote the one about the heroin, so the Pakistanis and the Ugandans and all that. It was written by Guy Jenkin. I don't know if you know who Guy Jenkin is. He's the writing partner of Andy Hamilton. He co-wrote Drop the Dead Donkey, which is one of my favourite shows of all time. But he's generally a comedy writer, and he wrote that episode, which is one of the. Well, it does have some funny moments in it about the guy who always uses "I'd rather have a rabid ferret down my trousers," so Gene shows up with rabid ferrets. Situation.
That's brilliant.
Well, they're not rabid, but they are very angry, I think is the way it's described. So there is still humour in it, but yeah, the fact that Guy Jenkins wrote an episode is awesome. Just from my perspective, I'm a nerd like that.
I've got to watch that show again, Drop the Dead Donkey. I used to watch it years ago.
Drop the Dead Donkey is so good. I mean, it's slightly dated now because obviously it was written early 90s, but the thing that they do that's good is at the beginning of every episode, it tells you what was happening in that week in the world. So even though the references are outdated now, they've told you at the beginning of the episode what was happening in the world.
Happening at the time, yeah.
So that you kind of go, oh, I get it. Even if you don't remember it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to, because the ending's very happy and it makes sense. So basically, I have a question for you guys. I've only heard about the ending of the US version where they were in space in a VR set.
What?
Nobody has seen the US version, them, no?
I've
heard of it. One episode of the US version and went, nah.
Yeah.
Because it's, again, they've just moved it to New York.
The thing is, I like Harvey Keitel, who plays the Gene Hunt character.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have the thing about the way Philip Glenister plays it. Although he's a misogynist, although he's an arsehole, it's the whole hooker with the heart of gold thing. You know that deep down, there's a good person there, somebody who genuinely believes that they're doing the right thing. Whereas Harvey Keitel kind of played more on the harshness of the character.
Yeah.
Of him being a disciplinarian, and him being, it's my house, my rules, you do it as I say, which Phil Glenister does. But you don't get that same emotional depth of actually, he's doing that because that's the way that he knows to control things so that he can then do the right thing. Like, he knows the best way to keep Ray in line is to do a few bawdy jokes with him and have a pint.
Yeah.
He's not doing it just because he's an alcoholic. He's doing it because he knows that the best way to help Ray is to let him be one of the lads.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Like, he actually understands his team incredibly well.
Yeah.
And yeah, so the problem was, even though Harvey Keitel's a great actor, the writing was just not good enough. I mean, the pilot episode, if you get the chance to see the American pilot episode, is very close to the first episode from the BBC version, and is pretty good.
Yeah.
But that's because they've got, much as when The Office redid it, they've got a brilliant source material already to work with, and they're not trying to rewrite it.
Yeah, but my question
slight
is,
changes to make it American rather than English. But that's it.
Yeah, but that's for me laziness. I mean, I'm going to say this one thing now, because we're going to say this a lot about certain shows. Americans are clever people, and I have a lot of American friends who really just don't understand why they can't just broadcast the British version. Yeah, there are cultural differences, but like, we have to figure out American culture. We don't keep remaking American shows, so they don't understand. Why can't we speak the same language? Why can't we just have the British originals and leave it at that?
But that's the thing, they do normally have the British originals. It's when those are successful, the big money American people go, oh, well, if we do an American version,
exactly,
even bigger.
Yeah, but that's TV companies, because a lot of Americans would agree with us that the British remakes, the American remakes, are just, there's no need for them. Yeah, and they horribly...
That's not general America asking for that. That's big money executives thinking they can see a way of squeezing money out of it. And to be honest, if you're Harvey Keitel, are you going to say no to a payday? No.
No, but what I mean is networks in America think that American viewers are stupid when they're not.
No, I don't think it's that. I think it's they think that they can make it more relatable if it's American, and they can also make a shitload of money because
it's a money thing.
Not only will they show their American version, but they'll also get the rights to the British version and show that as well. So they know they're going to get bigger viewing figures.
Exactly.
Because people are going to go, oh, I wonder how it differs.
Exactly.
So certainly,
that version compared to our version, if it's any better, yeah.
It's about getting the viewing traffic.
I think The Office is the only show that's been better than the original from the UK.
I wouldn't say it's better. I'd say it's different. I like both of them.
Tom loves it. Tom loves it.
No, they're very different shows. But I like both of them because they're not trying. The American version isn't trying to be the British version. The only thing they did was they made the very first episode like the British version. But other than that, they haven't tried to make it anything like Ricky Gervais's version.
I'd say the same thing with me because I've watched both, like the American version and the English version of Being Human. So I like both of them, to be fair.
Hold on, if you let me finish.
Yeah, but then again, you like Charmed, so.
Oh, come on, what? Charmed is the best show of all time. Come on,
and you like the American Being Human, which is hot garbage. Nice one.
It's so good. Go watch it. Watch it fully, and you know.
It's not the British.
Watch it fully, then go good. So good.
That's why a lot of US remakes fail because they don't do it well enough. The Office has done it very well. That's Shameless, actually. Again, it's taken a very different spin from the UK version and done
Shameless USA, yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of them, like the In-Betweeners one, is my favorite all-time fail.
Because the American version of In-Betweeners.
They literally, don't go watch the trailer. Don't go watch the show. They literally copied the jokes word for word and didn't spin it American style. They just tried to copy the British way, which didn't translate very well.
Not to change the subject, but is it thunder and lightning where you are right now?
Yes.
Yeah, literally the biggest thunderclap outside my window. Like, what the hell?
But to get back up, but that's because we're talking about the American ending. They basically decided, it's a VR in space.
What a load of wank!
VR in space.
I'm glad that the UK version of both Life of Mars and Ashes to Ashes never went there. Very happy.
The only thing I would say about the American version is at least it wasn't as popular, so it was cancelled after 17 episodes, I think.
Yeah.
But at least they were given enough warning to actually make an ending. So they decided to do something with it. But Jesus Christ.
To be fair, there was like a literal time slot change because the time slot was like messed up on the American version. That's why it got low ratings as well.
Yeah, because the American
was like a death slot.
Change everything.
Yeah. It was like a high. Yeah.
You see, it doesn't make any sense to me. That
it's one of the best endings of all time.
VR in space. I gotta check it out now. We're gonna watch it now.
But the ending to Life on Mars in the British version
is perfect.
Is a brilliant ending.
Yeah.
The guy gets back to the place he's been trying for so long to get to, only to find. I mean, it's very cliched, but that whole thing about it's real if you feel it, that Nelson says to him.
Yeah.
And he's then sitting in that meeting and he doesn't notice that he's cut his own hand open.
What's that? Yeah.
Whilst he's in that meeting, and it's like, oh, nice touch, like that. And that's kind of his moment of realization is actually, I'm feeling nothing now I'm back here. I felt more real where I was.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, it's a very sad, can you imagine for his family in 2006 and all of that stuff, that they hear that he's just come out of a coma. They've been worrying about him for God knows how long. And he goes and throws himself off a building like a week later.
I mean, what does that do to a family?
So it's actually as an ending. It's actually horrific in loads of ways.
Especially because the original reason he's in hospital. This is the funny bit to me. It's quite funny. It's quite sad, really. The original bit is he got hit by a car, and then he wakes up in a coma. He's walking around fine. And he just commits suicide. Like, it wouldn't make any sense, would it?
Well, the reason he's in hospital for so long, actually, weirdly enough, is the car accident probably helped him because they then discover he's got a benign tumour on his brain, which they might not have found had he not been in the hospital.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the thing that's kept him asleep for all that time is the fact that he's actually got a tumour on his brain. But, I mean, it's just, if you think about it from Sam's perspective, it's a great ending. He goes back, he saves the day, He saves all of them from disaster. He keeps his promises to people, and he ends up with the girl. But if you think about what's going on in the real world, the chief inspector of the Manchester Police has just lobbed himself off a building.
Yeah.
It's the weirdest ending, because you think, your natural mind think that's an horrific thing, but as a fan of the show, you're going, "Oh, great, he's going to go back." So it's weird. You're cheering him throwing himself off the top of...
He's going back.
Which, weirdly enough, he nearly does in the very first episode.
Yeah.
He actually does exactly what he thinks he should do in the very first episode. Take that leap. It's the exact same thing. He does it again.
I got a funny story to tell you, actually, because my wife didn't watch the show with me. She only saw the ending. She saw the first episode. A couple of weeks later, obviously, she knows the rough premise, and she sees him. Obviously, I told her I watched the last episode. She's come back down, and it's modern day, and he just jumps off the thing. And she's like, "Why has he done that then, to go back to the 70s? She didn't see the whole thing. It's just, for her, it's hilarious. I was just like, it's beautiful. And she went, "He committed suicide." I was like, "Yeah, but you have to understand the show." It's
you have to watch it.
Yeah, I got no.
I'm happy for him. It's the most happiest suicide of all time.
Yeah.
I'm downloading the theme. I'm downloading this. I'm going to Spotify now. I'm downloading the playlist.
I've got the playlist. I've actually got the CDs from season 1 and season 2.
The
playlist is awesome.
Yeah. It's crazy. I'm looking at the music listener right now. Blue Oyster Cult,
David Bowie, Deep Purple, Lou Reed, Sweet, The Who,
exactly.
Heap, Paul McCartney and Wings. Well, that's a little bit, but it is Live and Let Die, which is a fucking classic.
Yeah.
Ballroom Blitz by Sweet.
That's the one where he's driving backwards.
Yes.
That's it.
Gene Genie.
I love that song.
Yes, Gene Genie.
Gene Genie. He calls himself the Gene Genie. Just call me the Gene Genie. Oh my God.
That's him referring to his gut instinct, isn't it? The Gene Genie.
The Gene Genie.
Can I tell you something really funny? Can I tell you another funny story about this show, actually? Because I watched this with me and my friend. This sounds quite sad because this came out at the same time as when he was on Doctor Who. I remember the jokes down the pub that me and my friend Steve used to do. Oh, he's the master, so he'll come back. He regenerated on the season 2 finale. I don't know. He'll just regenerate. He's the master. It's like, he'll get back in the TARDIS. He's the master. He's forgotten. He's a time traveler. We were just being stupid, but
That's what I did back in the day. I was like, yeah, I'll just make jokes myself. Make jokes about it. Man, to be a time traveler. TARDIS.
There's too much Doctor Who in this show. We keep coming back to it.
Oh,
I'm not apologizing.
That's what you think. It's you, man. It's you.
We keep coming back to it. No, we don't.
I drag you kicking, screaming back to it, and we agree. Yes, okay.
We need to get John Sim to listen to this podcast before you say.
If you do listen to this, Mr. Sim, you're a fantastic actor and we love you.
Yes.
You're just fantastic, yeah.
I'm going to try and get this to him somehow. I'll find him.
I think the whole cast are great, actually.
Heck yeah.
I mean, that's the thing that I was going to say, is even outside of the main cast, the people they get to come in for like one episode, they get some amazing actors. Like, I think it's episode 1 of season 2. They get Mark Warren to play the big bad guy in that episode. He's a fantastic
actor.
He's so good.
And he's got 2 episodes better than Peters.
Yeah.
Back to Doctor Who. So, no, but interesting. Robert Guildenstern, he was in Hustle, who's
he was Ash Morgan.
The brother, Gene Hunt, the actor who plays Gene Hunt, Philip.
Yeah.
And stuff. Yeah. Nice little Hustle connection there.
Yeah, I know.
Hustle's epic.
We will have to do a thing on Hustle at some point. Hustle is a show that we will have to review.
Hustle has to be done at some point. Yeah, Tom, I'm with you.
a decent actor. I want to do some shows with Mark Warren in actually for big episodes. He's a really good actor.
Have you seen
Really
his version
underrated.
of Dracula?
No, I'm gonna
The
go find
BBC
it
did
now.
about 8 or 9 years ago.
Wait,
He played
Yeah,
Dracula.
but
It was very
BBC
good.
I want to also announce that I also want to do This Is England as well, because I saw it on that list.
That's so
What a
painful, that show. In a good way. It's brilliantly written.
It's the bleakest thing I've ever seen. It just gets worse every season.
Yeah. But it's so
just
British and
kicks,
beautiful.
and it's really short. I would like to do that with you guys. I know it's technically a movie, first movie, but we have to do it because I think it's one of the best things the last 10 years this country's ever put out. It's haunting. One of the most difficult scenes of all time. So we got something to announce off camera. We decided to do. We're going to announce the next couple of specials actually, because we have to call this podcast to end because we don't want to drag it out too long.
Yeah.
But we can put Hustle on the dock for October. Should we do it? Because it's on BritBox.
So what we got? We've got next month is Ashes to Ashes.
Yeah, Ashes.
Yeah. This
Then
will be Men Behaving Badly.
Men Behaving Badly. Yeah.
Yep.
So that
September
will
is
take
Buffy.
us to. That takes us to August, and then September is Buffy.
We have to do Buffy because we all love that show, and that's going to be a.
It depends how many of the series we do, whether I love it or not. To be brutally honest, but yeah.
Well, it's a classic, and it's a very important show, and I feel like we've all seen it.
Exactly. Invaders Charm, as you know, one of the best shows of all time. You know this.
Between my Doctor Who joke and Charm, most probably sets us like clockwork, Troy. We most probably want to bang both of their heads.
Tom's the opposite out, man.
Anyway.
Tom's just giving
thunder and lightning in me. Right, and October can be Hustle, and then November can be This Is It. I reckon us planning out our year like we're actually good at doing this.
I kid you not, I'm writing this down.
December can be Screwed, can be something. See, I don't know what we do for December, but we'll get to that. There's your plan. That's a bunch of good shows right there. Because we want to talk about our comedy podcast as well to wrap this up. Because you've heard us mention Red Dwarf quite a lot, and you're most probably wondering what the fuck is going on with Red Dwarf. We're working on theme music for it. We're still working on it. We're recording them in blocks at the moment. Actually, next week we're going to do another recording block of season 2. And maybe we will stick out another Syndrome. We will launch it as soon as we know when we're going to do it. We're trying to get a couple of seasons ahead.
But we also need good theme music.
Yeah, and Troy's also a busy boy. So
legit.
It's easy to get Tom Cruise on this podcast and get Troy on here. But what we want to do, I've been asked by a few people that I know. They wanted to know what we're going to do after Red Dwarf. So we were thinking that would be the comedy swap out. Short comedy series would take its place afterwards. So like your in-betweeners, like Peep Show.
Inside Number 9.
Yeah, we're going to swap those out regularly with other comedy shows to just keep it as a second podcast. So, yeah, that's it. We finally figured out what shows we're putting on the classic, the special one, which is this one, and which ones we're going to talk about on the normal Syndrome or do a episode by episode comedy podcast. Sorry, it's taken us so long. We're still figuring this out. We're still basically a baby crawling at the moment, trying to learn how to walk. We do apologize. We will try and get you that Red Dwarf podcast as soon as possible. But we're going to do one a week, or should we? We're going to do them one a week. We're not rushing this. We want to make it the best we possibly can.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And we might have occasional guest occasionally. because like we keep attributing to keep this thing on a weekly schedule, there are moments where Troy isn't always available. So instead of firing him, because we need him to edit the podcast, yeah, but funny joke, no? What we're going to do is we got a backup idea of someone. We're not going to tell you who. Occasionally, you might hear a special guest who will take over if Troy is busy. We will try and do backlogged if we have to get them out regularly. But if it's not possible, we have a backup plan. So we're not going to tell you when it happens. It's just a surprise. So yeah, we are planning things ahead into 2021. So that was a good one then. That was enjoyable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Fun. Go and watch the American remake. It's quite good. Just prepare yourself for that shite landing.
I'll check it out.
It's so bad. I had to spoil it for everyone.
Wait, is it so bad it's good? Is it that kind of thing?
I've heard that it's a really good American remake, and it does enough.
Okay.
But it's set in New York. I think there should be a limit to America, London set shows. There's so much more interesting towns in like America and England that they could be set in besides those two cities, I think. But that's a rant for another day. We're going to finish this bad boy. So, right, I'm Ben.
I'm Tom.
I'm Troy.
And you got a Nick. Now, fuck off. Get in the cell.